Thank you for that introduction. Welcome all to the Global Inclusive Growth Summit. I'm the CEO of the Aspen Institute. We are so proud to be partnering with MasterCard on all kinds of work on the theme of inclusive growth with DevEx. We have a great team at the Aspen Institute led by that singular sensation, Ida Rademacher, who leads our financial security program. But I feel pretty privileged to get to interview another singular sensation today.
Thank you.
Muriel Bowser, welcome.
Thank you, my pleasure.
You know, it's so important as we're hosting a global symposium that has thousands of people watching online. It's going to be replayed in many different settings over the next coming weeks and months, to be located and grounded in place. Washington, D.C., which we sometimes say quickly is the nation's capital, which is true. But how about just Washington, D.C., a place with great people and a mayor who's all about driving change for all people?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And so I always say, you say welcome to this beautiful summit. I say welcome to the best city in the world.
Thank you.
And we are happy that you chose to host this global summit here. So many people in person, so many people watching to talk about how we grow and we grow fairly. And we talk about how we come back from a global pandemic and how we do it fairly, and how more people can participate in the prosperity that is Washington, D.C. So we are, yes, we're proud to host the federal government in our town, but we're 700,000 people who live here. We raise our families here, we work here, we start businesses here, we represent our nation here by going to war. Yet we're not represented in our own capital. So that's part of what would be more inclusive.
So tell us about this concept, inclusive growth, which we think about in economic terms, but which you've identified we need to think about more broadly.
Yes.
How do you think about it?
Well, we think about it as a city that for many years, over the last 15 years, Washington, D.C. has really experienced a renaissance. And then we've had a bump with coming back from COVID, but for 15 years, we've grown pretty strongly. And part of that means many, many, many new people have moved to Washington, and it put a lot of pressure on those of us who were born and raised here. So oftentimes in my administration, when we talk about inclusive growth, we talk about, yes, we want to attract paying jobs. Yes, we want to grow our population. Yes, we want more businesses. Yes, we want more development. But we want the people who have lived here during the good times and the bad times to be able to afford to live here. So what that has meant for us is, how do we grow wages and how do we build more affordable housing?
Exactly that. Some people, well, anybody leading a big city would be worrying about gentrification because it's almost an inevitable dynamic of growth that will at least be talked about. How do you mitigate some of the adverse effects of gentrification?
Well, I don't know that we've always gotten it right in DC, but now we get to experience kind of the other side of the coin. I've told people in DC, we have a position called Advisory Neighborhood Commission.
That's where you started, I think.
And I was first elected. It's a volunteer position. You represent 2,000 of your neighbors. I was on our legislature for 8 years, and now I've been mayor for 8 years. And in all that time, I've kind of had the same approach. I believe very strongly that neighborhoods don't stay the same. They get better, they improve, we invest in them, or we watch them decay. So it's our job to make those investments while bringing people along with us. No one wants to be a town that neighborhoods are decaying in, or that people won't move to. So you're shrinking in your population, or businesses can't start and grow in your town. So we have a growth mindset, but we also, because of that growth, we've created a kind of prosperity that allows us to invest in people in ways that cities across America they can't do, and we've been able to do. I say that we're kind of experiencing the other side of the coin because in all of my years of elective office, we've been growing. But what COVID has done is it's kind of put a little wrinkle in some of our downtown prosperity, which flows down to our revenues, which flows down to our ability to invest in some of the amazing programs that we've put into families. And so now people don't ask me as much as, are you worried about gentrification? They're asking me, how are we going to make sure that we're growing our population downtown while maintaining our rich diversity? And so we continue to focus on that.
So as the mayor doing many critical things every single day, one thing you do is you connect with the private sector and help the private sector be able to envision how it could participate in a growth strategy.
Absolutely.
It's fair and equitable.
Absolutely.
And any thoughts about what that means for a mayor to do that? How do you do that?
It means a lot of different things. It means making sure that we're laying out a vision, and every 5 years we create an economic strategy plan. And I just launched our most recent 5-year plan, and we've dubbed it the Comeback Plan. And it allows the private sector to see where the government is going to be and how they can be supportive. And, we encourage them. We don't do the same thing. So we want them to do the things that they're good at, and we're going to work on the things that we're good at. Part of our strategies this year I've set a goal to diversify the people and uses in our downtown. We're like 90% commercial in our downtown, which is not like a good mix, especially now. So we want to add 15,000 residents. We want to increase Black wealth in DC. And we have been pretty intentional and candid about talking about how we get there, and investing in our high schools and our high growth job market so that people in DC are getting good paying jobs. You need a good paying job to live a comfortable life here. We want to create more Black homeowners in DC. I tell the story of how buying a little house in a good neighborhood changed my life in many ways, because it allowed me to buy something, invest in it, and I've used that house to support all of my crazy ideas over the years. And we know that gives people freedom and choice.
So you're a pro-growth mayor, but you've thought about how growth can benefit the whole community.
Absolutely.
How we have to lean in to equitable growth and lean in to fair growth.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would love to see the private sector writ large, now beyond the city, but writ large for our country, engage in the work together, which was actually what the Aspen Institute was founded to do, of building a better society with all sectors contributing?
Right. I think one of the biggest things that I think the private sector can help us with is employment for people who have barriers to employment. And what I know about going around town and for many, many years is people want to work. They don't always know how to get there and to get to the type of job that is going to provide them a good life and a sustainable life. And so I think the private sector, in looking at, does everybody need to have a 4-year college degree? If people have been justice involved, how do we get them back into productive life? How do we have workplaces that support young moms and make sure that they can work? And how are we being supportive of programs right now that we have piloted in DC that is meant to be an off-ramp to public benefits? Yeah. And so we have people who really, their barrier to getting a good paying job is that they have a young family. They need to figure out how to support their family, put a roof over their head, but they can work. Yeah. And they want to work. And they want that off-ramp to show them how to get to a good paying job.
So that's important. It's to ask the private sector and all of us to widen our aperture about what we think when we think of growth. Who works, where they work, how they work, how we support them.
Absolutely.
Years back when I was at Georgetown University as a professor, and I founded a program for out of school, out of work, younger people who were justice involved. That program's been around for 40 years, and it's really made a difference. Just what you say, young people given the opportunity will rise.
Absolutely. And structure. Yeah. And being around trusted adults that can show them how. We assume a lot, especially those of us who've been privileged to have great examples of work and family and love and challenge. And we can't assume that every kid has that. If every kid had that, wow.
Yeah. So I called you a pro-growth mayor. Now I want to call you a pro-human, pro-community, pro-equity, pro-growth mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll take that.
Will you say a little bit about the role the education system plays in the vision you have for this city?
Right. Well, we're very proud of our public schools, and one of my predecessors, Mayor Adrian Fenty, kind of set the bold vision that the mayor should be responsible for schools, and more than that, not responsible, but accountable for the outcomes that we produce in our schools. And some 15 years ago now, they call it mayoral takeover, but really it's a system of mayoral accountability. And that's what we have in DC. So I'm among few mayors that run schools. And I hired the chancellor. We have an incredible teaching staff. We were able to put in many years ago an incentive structure that allowed us to pay our teachers accordingly, but also to hold our teachers accountable. We have a pre-K 3 and 4 program that's second to none, I will say, and it's free and it's universal. And so we're proud of that. We're heavily investing in childcare. With the budget proposal I have now before the council, we want to make childcare free for families up to 300% of the federal poverty line, which means kids 0 to 6 here, almost 43%.
Enormous issue all across America.
Enormous issue. Yeah. So, we believe that public safety and public schools change cities. Yep. And that's why we saw people move into our city, and we know that continuing to invest in that will help us add more people.
So here we are at Studio Theater.
Yes.
The arts community plays such a role in every city, in every area, including a role in economic growth.
Oh, for sure.
Say a word about that.
Well, we have to disrupt part of our reputation. People think of Washington only as the White House and the Capitol and all of the bickering that goes along. And they forget that, hey, we have art.
Exactly.
We have restaurants. Yeah. Our creative economy is growing and thriving, and artists can make a living here. We've invested quite heavily. We had a dedicated part of our sales tax goes to fund our arts commission. We've supported a lot of the venues across the city. I'm glad to see you using one of our arts venues today. So the creative economy is part of Washington. Our economy is really heavily tourist and creative arts based and services based.
Yep. Well, as we sort of bring this interview to a close, maybe I'd like to ask you if there's anything you'd like to leave our audience here and online with as a thought about what we all can do to contribute to growthful, pro-human, pro-community cities.
Absolutely. I think focusing on what we can do for young families and having young families be able to afford to live in cities where there are high opportunities, great schools, arts and entertainment, transportation, that will allow kids to have a great life.
Mayor Muriel Bowser, thank you so much for hosting us. Thank you.